Reports started leaking out over the weekend that Ivanka and Jared have been dissing Daddy Trump. Now, from what we understand, Jared, as you know, was a special envoy to the Middle East, and Ivanka was just sort of a catch-all floating through the powerful office of the presidency. You might remember that the Secret Service Department rejected Jared, giving him clearance to serve, to be in the White House and the Oval Office. They felt that he did not clear, according to Secret Service standards, because of his financial involvements. He was at $600 million in debt in a building here in New York City that was going worthless by the day. And because of his mounting debt and engagements that he had, and of course, Jared's father, who was also a real estate developer, was sent to prison by Chris Christie when he was governor of the state of New York for his shenanigans in the real estate, doing illegal deals as well. And the Secret Service Department looked at Jared, the son of this, and Kushner, and decided that he did not qualify and recommended that he would not be given clearance. Well, Trump overrode the Secret Service Department and gave his son-in-law, Jared, top secret clearance, the highest level of clearance that one can get working around the president, and then appointed him as special envoy to travel to the Middle East to broker a peace deal that is now referred to as the Abraham Accord that was put together that led to the latest intifada between Israel and Gaza going back a month or so ago now, where the fighting went on for a couple of weeks of firing rockets there. It's the Abraham Accords that were put together by Jared, who himself understands I comes from a Jewish bloodline. But now we're hearing that Ivanka and Jared are no longer wanting to associate with Daddy Trump. And the reason being is that what's being alleged is that they don't want to be associated with the big lie. That there have been 70 court cases brought by Donald Trump in at least 15 different state locales contesting the election results. And all but one of those courts ruled that the election was legal, that there was nothing untoward, that there was nothing there to see. And one of the judges just called it a laughing, frivolous case that was brought, declaring that the election was an election fraud. But Trump continues to promote that. Of course, you've got the cyber, if you will, ninjas out there in Arizona conducting an audit. There have been several audits. The state of Georgia has been re-audited 11 times or somewhere thereabouts. And the state of Pennsylvania is considering a cyber ninja type of audit as well, stroking Trump's ego that the election was stolen, and that somehow or another these audits and investigations are going to turn up information that people with satellite powers from Italy was causing the voter counting machines in several states to flip votes from Biden to Trump, and it was all being done out of Italy by a special satellite dish and a special, if you will, power that was put together called Italy-gate, and it just gets more ridiculous as it goes along. That many of the votes were, the election paper was bamboo paper from China that would automatically transfer the vote from Trump to Biden, and they're looking for bamboo shoots and bamboo linen, and it's a mess. And so it's being reported now. It's being reported now that Jared, who is a young man, and Ivanka want to try to move forward with their lives. They're ditching Daddy Trump. Not only that, but it was also reported last week that Jared has signed a 7-figure book deal with one of America's big publishers to write his memoirs of the White House. And as of this day, no one has offered Trump a book deal, not even people in the conservative press or Mike Lindell or some of the others. So there are also the reports, and I don't know how true any of these reports are. They could all be rumors, and I tend to try to avoid reporting rumors as best I possibly can. If I'm caught up in this one, then I'm caught up in it. But it is alleged that Trump is ticked off that his son-in-law has now got a multi-million-dollar book deal, and nobody cares for Trump's story. That, too, has, as you know, Trump does not want anybody getting ahead of him in terms of popularity. And so the Ivanka and Jared and the children are kind of disindicted. They're not having any relationship. It's alleged that maybe Jared calls once a week now just to check in, but there's really no family, if you will, excitement going there. And, you know, Trump has a sister and he has a niece, and they've all been issuing reports about the straining of the family. His sister was a federal judge, but when Trump became president, she actually stepped down to stop an investigation into her life because of the insidious criminal activities that Trump has been known for years. She stepped down from a federal judgeship, knowing that Trump was a con man and all of this was going to come to pass, that Trump was not going to change his ways. He was going to run the White House as a criminal enterprise, which he did. And she wanted to get completely absolved of this. She walked away. And of course, you know, Michael Cohen, who was Trump's personal attorney for a while, was caught up in the Stormy Daniels deal of paying hush money of $130,000 to Stormy Daniels to keep her from coming out and testifying. And what the reports that Stormy Daniels had of the documentation of her sexual encounters with Trump, she accepted $130,000, and Michael Cohen was the one who facilitated that payment. But the way he facilitated it through his own account, and then allegedly was paid back through Trump, you know, as retainer money, was illegal, and therefore he ended up catching a 3-year federal prison sentence as a result of that. But in that federal indictment and in that conviction was named Individual 1, who was an unindicted co-conspirator to the event. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on right now with Trump. And I suspect the reason why Ivanka and Jared are jumping ship is that they can see the ship is sinking. And they want to swim as far away from the Titanic called Tribulation Trump that they can before the thing goes on. Now, I can turn a corner for just a second. I expect that indictments, as you just heard in my earlier reporting, that a panel of judges, federal judges, have looked at the activity of Rudolph Giuliani, former mayor of the city of New York, former attorney general for the Southern District of America, has had his law license suspended. And this is just the first of a lot of trees that are going to fall in the forest, and everybody's going to hear the sound of when they crash. And I believe that Ivanka and Jared, they've been given inside stories, accounts by the attorneys, that that the indictments are getting ready to fall, and they too may be indicted, or they may have already given testimony about things that they know about Trump in order to avoid indictment. But I can tell you, my friends, this thing is getting ready to get uglier than Lamont Monroe. Now, this thing is getting ready to get ugly, and Lamont Monroe was ugly. I shouldn't say that. Lamont was really my friend. We called him Doofus. He just had a long bus head, and he'd act funny, but he's really a man of a great heart. And I literally, as a friend, he was a great friend, but everybody, you know, as young boys, we called him what we called him. And he died several years ago. He was out in Brooklyn. I went and preached at a church where he was a deacon at a church out there in Brooklyn off of Eastern Parkway, 30 years ago. And so I don't mean to defame Lamont. If I have any of my friends from North Carolina listening or his family members listening, I think one of his brothers or cousins is also a bishop in a Methodist church. So, but anyway, this thing's getting ready to get ugly. And I suspect that the indictments are going to start falling late July, early August. In fact, I didn't expect this. I knew that Rudy was going to lose his law license. I didn't expect it to happen quite this quick. So because Cy Vance is now leaving, his term will be up on the 31st of December, and he's now the district attorney for the city of New York. And I suspect, and he's the one who's leading the investments into Trump enterprises, into tax fraud or in income tax or filings, and along with Tish James, who is the Attorney General for the state of New York, they've joined forces against Trump. And so now I expected that, probably that the indictments would fall sometime in August or September. But it looks now like they could be falling sometime late July to early August. But Giuliani, I used to admire Giuliani. I used to, even though he was a Republican and, he was not for the Hamite people here in New York City. They all hated him. He and Al Sharpton fought like cats and dogs. But I admired Giuliani at one point in time. I really thought he was a just man. There is the unexplainable cult-like effect that Donald Trump has on reasonably good people. I know a lot of good people who used to be members of this church. They used to be members of this church. They were Japheth, and I've talked with them, had dinner with them, I sat with them, and they were reasonable people. I've examined them psychologically, if you will, if you want to say that, from head to toe. But they have flipped, and they've allowed themselves to promote this con man, to promote this shyster, this psychopath Trump. And Giuliani's done this. Giuliani's thrown away. They used to call Giuliani Mr. Mayor of America because of his great work during the 9/11 event. On that day, that Tuesday morning in September of 2001, Giuliani took the stage and stood for America. And we all felt the better, even though there was a tragic event of bringing down those World Trade Center towers. And for him to throw all this away behind a psychopath. Trump is a sick man. Trump should be in a straitjacket. And Giuliani threw all of that away. Now his law license has been suspended. His name is in the mud. He'll never recover. He's an alcoholic and he's broke. And Trump ain't gonna give him no money. But Giuliani, okay. But there are literally others, members of this church who were decent people, who've allowed themselves to throw their lives, to throw their reputations away. They used to be members of this church. They've thrown their lives, their reputation away to follow this psychopath. Trump needs to be in a straitjacket. But the indictments are coming. And we're waiting to hear now the outcome of the testimony of Alan Weisselberg. The pressure being put on Alan Weisselberg to tell the feds where the bones are buried. Because Alan Weisselberg has been with the Trump organization for 40 years. He knows where all the bones are buried. He knows where all the illegal activity went on with tax filing, business dealings, the like. This boy, Alan Weisselberg, you're looking at, he knows all of it. And a lot of people are saying that Alan Weisselberg is going to flip, that they put enough pressure on him, he's going to tell the feds where, and once he makes a deal, you got to tell everything you know. You got to tell every time Trump went to the bathroom and what he did when he was in there. You got to tell everything. You just can't tell some things, which got Michael Cohen in trouble because he didn't tell everything, so they sent him to jail anyway. But Weisselberg may take a bullet for Trump. He may fall on his sword. He may take a bullet for Trump. He's an older man. He figure, well, I'll die in prison. Or maybe they won't be so harsh on me. I'll go to one of these federal, country club prisons and I'll be out in a few years. He may do that. But the problem is now Alan Weisselberg has two children. that are also involved in having received gifts, free condos, automobiles, tuition paid at these fancy New York private schools, and taxes were not filed, so they can go to jail. And while Weisselberg himself may discover that I'll fall on my sword or I'll take a bullet for Trump, I don't think he's going to let his children go to jail for Trump. I don't think he's going to do that. And I think his children are telling him, we don't need to go to, Daddy, all you got to do is tell the feds the truth, but don't let us go to jail for 7 to 10 years for Donald Trump. The man's a psychopath, and hell, you know he is. So that's where all that's at. We don't know, what the grand jury has heard so far. We don't know what Weisselberg has said so far. He may have already flipped. We don't know. But this thing is going to get ugly in the next couple of months. And I think the first shoe just fell today with the suspension of Giuliani and his law license. You're going to see a whole lot of stuff turn over here in New York City because Trump ran a criminal enterprise, and I think there's power now to expose him. And I'm going to conclude with this. The panel that suspended Rudy Giuliani's law license says it's one thing that is promoting this lie that Trump is still the president. He's not. Or that the election was stolen. It wasn't. But potentially it is endangering the welfare of all Americans because you got a lot of other people out there that are believing this and have taken up arms and are looking to defend Trump to the death. And this is dangerous for America, but it's far more dangerous for the democracy. I've already stated in one of my early postings that democracy is now dead. It will not be revived. Nobody will believe in the voting system anymore. Trump and his psychopaths have effectively killed the voting process as a legitimate process of choosing our elected officials. That's gone. You ain't gonna never see that no more. And the dark money coming into this election process will turn our nation to a nation, as it remains, a nation of oligarchs, something on the order of what happens in Russia. But democracy is gone. And Trump and Obama can be accredited with destroying it. However, I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant. This is a bit of a news blog we do looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.